Most retirement plans look fine on paper until life actually happens. So, what happens when Medicare premiums jump and no one knows what can safely be changed? What happens when tax rules change late in your career and your paycheck suddenly looks different? What happens when sensitive financial and estate documents are uploaded online and your spouse doesn't even know they exist? And the biggest question of all, if something happened to you tomorrow, could your spouse step in and confidently run the plan? This is Eye on Retirement.
In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Welcome into Eye on Retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby. We recently sat down with a couple that I think a lot of you could relate to. The husband, he had managed his own investments his entire life. He's been smart, disciplined, and he's done what many people are proud of. He's been hands-on and in control. But as we talked, something shifted. He mentioned, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about what happens when I'm not here. His biggest concern, it wasn't stock market returns. It wasn't beating the market. It was this. If something happened to him, his wife would be left with more questions than answers. And she felt it too. While he was handling the investments, she was the one losing sleep over market volatility. She didn't want to be forced to make a big financial decision in the middle of grief, stress, or uncertainty, and especially if there was even a down market. That's when we came back to a phrase I'm sure you've heard us use before because it matters. If your spouse can't run your plan, you don't really have a plan. And a real retirement plan isn't just something that works when everything goes right. It's something that still works when life happens. When one spouse is suddenly alone, when the markets are volatile, when decisions need to be made clearly and confidently, that's why this couple decided not to just rely on one person or one perspective. They wanted a team, an estate planning attorney to keep the documents clear and current, a financial advisor to manage investments and income, a tax advisor to reduce stress and unnecessary taxes, and a healthcare advisor to navigate Medicare and long-term care decisions. Not a stack of disconnected professionals, but a coordinated team working together. So if one spouse is here one day and gone the next, the other isn't left guessing. So I'll ask you the same question I opened the show with. If something happened to you tomorrow, could your spouse confidently step in and run the plan? Would they know who to call? What decisions not to make? How income is supposed to work? And how the risk is being managed. If your answer is no, or I'm not sure, that doesn't mean you failed. It just means it's time to take the next step. So if you don't have a plan your spouse could run, schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with our team. There's no cost, no obligation, just a chance to see whether it makes sense to move forward. The number to call? It's 833-44-CORE-4. Or that's 833-442-6734. You need to take that next step. After that, that includes our retirement risk review so you can clearly see where potential gaps and exposures might exist in your plan. Because peace of mind in retirement isn't just about you. It's about the person you love the most. So coming up after the break, I'll be joined by Cory Hiebert with Market Medical Insurance, talking about the rising cost of Medicare premiums. You won't want to miss this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors. All in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you to get you answers in real time, to help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Well, welcome back into Ion Retirement. I'm Matt Goolsby, and joining me now is health insurance advisor Cory Hiebert. And Cory, Medicare premiums, they went up this year, and that's causing some anxiety and stress for retirees. What could be done about this Medicare increase in premiums?
Yeah, so whenever we're talking about the Medicare premiums increasing, there's one universal pain that everybody's going to feel. And that universal pain is the Medicare Part B premium, which we saw take another big jump into this year, and it did go over that $200 threshold. Now, one thing that can be done specifically in terms of the Medicare Part B premium is actually where we benefit as Medicare advisors from having you and the financial advisory staff on site. That is because of IRMA. IRMA, of course, standing for our income-related monthly adjustment amount.
Presley calls it IRMA. Well, in fact, you're filling in for Presley because she's sick this week.
Right.
So yeah, that IRMA catches a lot of people off guard. It's like a sneaky tax. But there's other things that go into this, right? It's not just the Part B premium that can go up with IRMA. It's also your drug plan can go up with IRMA.
Right. IRMA affects several different things along the way, and most people don't even realize that the drug plan goes up just like the Medicare Part B premium. And what's tough about that, Matt, is whenever you're dealing with people as they're approaching retirement, of course, same time as us, you have a couple odd scenarios that don't really happen in people's lives before that moment. And that is maybe they had a lot of vacation time that all gets paid out at once. Maybe they had a large company bonus that they were waiting to get to retirement until they got that amount. And maybe their income had never surpassed IRMA limits before until the year they went to start Medicare. And that one-time increase in income can cause several years of IRMA penalties.
So when you guys are taking people through and reviewing this, I know you don't tell everyone what the IRMA limits are every year. And I know as a financial advisor, that's not something I normally look at and say, well, you're about to trigger IRMA. It's really more of a tax component. But most Medicare advisors and financial advisors aren't working with a tax advisor in the mix as well. And it really is left up to the retiree to make sure they're not triggering IRMA.
Well, you hear this all the time, Matt, and I tell my clients this frequently, that we'll get to a point in the IRMA conversation where I have to go and hey, listen, that's about as far into that as I'm going to understand. I can tell you what those limits are. I can tell you not to go over those limits, but in terms of strategies to save or divert that income into another channel to make that income appear lower, that's not my area of expertise, and that's where I have the luxury of being able to go down the hallway and talk to somebody else.
So now that's enough fear and doom and gloom. Let's talk about what are some avoidable mistakes
Yes,
you
yes.
and your team have helped or have seen during your meetings with people that you're helping.
So of course, whenever we talk about the rising cost, a season that we still, I say, are just outside of would have been the open enrollment season. And why the open enrollment season is so critical is because that is the one time in the calendar year that you are able to make changes to a Medicare Advantage plan or a prescription drug plan. Now, to talk about what we can do now at this point in the year is a lot more to do with first a Medicare supplement. Medicare supplements, you can change your Medicare supplement and lower the price any day of the week, any time of the year, if you can pass underwriting, a series of 35 to 40 questions, and be in reasonable health.
And so this time period that you can switch the supplement, it's not just conditional on open enrollment. You can do that year round, but the catch here is it's you got to qualify health wise or medically wise.
Yeah, and I do have people say this to me. They say, Corey, I had X, Y, or Z happen 5 years ago. I don't even want to try underwriting. And it's important to realize that all insurance companies ask a different set of questions. It is not universal. I've had people be denied 9 times, but then they pass on their 10th attempt. So don't let anything discourage you from attempting to lower that Medicare supplement cost.
What would quickly maybe be some things that you say, yeah, that you're on the supplement for the rest of your life? Maybe like a recent heart attack or open bypass surgery or
Yeah,
cancer, heart
so
attack, stroke, things like that.
don't try to underwrite whenever you're laying on a hospital bed. That's about the worst time. Just don't wait until it's too late to make that change. If you think you're overpaying, call today and try to get through that underwriting process.
So healthcare planning, it isn't just about the premiums you're paying. It's about removing the confusion for the person you love most. And if you don't have someone that you can reach out to, or maybe if your spouse doesn't have someone they can reach out to when you're no longer here, it's good to have that team. So well said, Corey. If you or your spouse couldn't confidently handle Medicare decisions, all you need to do is start with that 15-minute phone conversation with us. And you can schedule that by calling 833-44-CORE4. And when we come back, we'll talk with one of our tax advisors, Lauren Dietz, about how healthcare costs and taxes can collide in retirement. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Eye on Retirement right after this.
Retirement is supposed to be exciting, the reward for decades of hard work. But for many, it starts with a flood of questions. When should I take Social Security? How will taxes change when I stop working? What do I need to know about Medicare? And what happens to everything I've built when I'm gone? Retiring isn't just about leaving work. It's about stepping into a whole new season of life and making sure you're ready for it. That's why there's retirementhelp.com, a free online resource built specifically for people just like you. Clear, trustworthy information on the decisions that shape your retirement. RetirementHelp.com is here to empower you with the resources and education you need to retire with ease. What sets RetirementHelp.com apart from other resources is how we view retirement planning. We believe it takes a team, because taxes can affect Medicare costs, and finances can affect estate planning. We take a holistic approach to retirement, so you don't have to bounce around like a pinball to get your questions answered. We have articles designed to answer questions you may have, webinars that dive deeper into topics like Social Security and taxes in retirement, videos, TV shows, and podcasts exploring real-life issues retirees have run into, as well as daily updates addressing changes in the retirement landscape. Don't let doubt keep you up at night wondering if you're ready or not. Visit retirementhelp.com today and start planning the retirement you deserve.
Late career tax changes, they can quietly make an impact on your take-home pay, especially with the recent Secure Act, not the recent Secure Act, Secure Act 2.0, and that caused a lot of changes for what many of you do here later in life after age 50. It's those catch-up contributions, and it can cause a lot of confusion. So when I am confused with taxes. I go down the hall and I grab Lauren Dietz. Catch-up contributions. What's changed here?
So they have kind of really put some oomph behind catch-up contributions,
But there's a catch.
but there's a catch.
There's
Yes,
always a catch.
there's always a catch. So they've increased how much you can do for a catch-up contribution, as well as it increases a little bit for like what the normal contribution is. It's all inflation based. For 2026, it's up to 24,500 for a base contribution, and then if you're age 50 plus, you can do an $8,000 catch-up contribution on top of that. But if your age is 60, 61, 62, or 63, you get like a super catch-up contribution, which is actually 11,000, and I think it's like 11,500 for those ages instead of that 8,000.
So I'm sure HR departments everywhere are just rejoicing for all these. If you're this age, it's this, and if you're this age, it's this, and oh yeah, if you're born on the fifth Tuesday of the month under a full moon, it's this. it's government makes everything so easy.
Yeah, no, if I would not want to be working in payroll or HR right now, having to try to keep all of those rules straight.
So does that impact sometimes how much they're taking home? Is there any taxable implications there?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a higher earner, that starts around $150,000, you actually are forced to have to make Roth contributions instead of those catch-up contributions have to all go towards Roth instead of traditional.
So that's how it changes the take-home pay, because the Roth is after-tax contributions, where you used to be able to make those catch-up contributions under the pre-tax or the traditional IRA.
Right.
And then that would maybe lower your taxable income.
Right,
But the
right.
government wants more tax revenue, so they're forcing people to actually contribute to a Roth.
Yes, yeah. So while you've got that contribution still coming out of your check every month, you're getting taxed on that. So now you're having to have more taxes withheld out of your check. So if you're not really paying attention, you may be thinking, oh, business as usual, but then you start getting those paychecks and you're like, where's the rest of my money at?
Well,
And-
wait a minute. I used to take home X amount of dollars, and now I'm getting less.
Yeah, and so it can cause some issues for cash flow purposes if you're just not really checking your pay stubs or really thinking about it until it just starts hitting that bank account and you're wondering what you did with the rest of your wages.
So simply put, your catch-up savings may still be allowed, but they might not work the way you are used to or have experienced, and you need to get tax advice. So could these changes increase taxes, and is there anything to timing?
It could definitely increase your taxes in those years where you're being forced to put into Roth. On I guess the good thing about that is they're going to Roth. So when you have to take that money out later on, that'll help you out in that sense.
So when people are doing these catch-up contributions, should they take a look at their payroll deductions? Should they take a look at their withholdings and make sure those are aligning still?
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely work with your HR, but really work with your tax advisor. They can really dial in and make sure that what you are having currently withheld is going to be enough, if it's too much, if it needs any sort of adjustment. And then that way you're not waiting until when you go to file your taxes and realizing, oh, I either way over withheld or I way under withheld, and now I've got to come up with a few $1,000s to pay this.
And in that vein, the closer you get to retirement, the less room you have for correction.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you're closing in on those last few years, you do have much less time to correct on any of that, and then it could be a problem.
So clear coordination reduces stress, not just for the person that's making the savings. I'm sure clear coordination has to also provide some stress relief for the spouse if they're in the picture, because sometimes maybe they're not even the one working or saving for retirement. Maybe they're the home engineer and taking care of the home.
I like the home engineer. That's a good way to describe it, you know? But yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times we see you've got one spouse that's working, they're kind of the ones that are involved in the financial decisions and the tax planning and the tax preparing, and it makes it easier for that other spouse that doesn't have to worry as much.
So Lauren Dietz with Market Tax Services, thanks for being here. And as we get into this year's tax season, I know your time's precious, but if any of this was confusing, or you're not alone, we're here to help you with retirement coordination. All you need to do is take that step one. That step one coordination call to align your payroll taxes, your retirement timing. You can do all that by calling 833-44-CORE4. That's 833-442-6734. And when we return, we'll bring it all together with financial advisor Jonathon McCoy from Kansas City. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Every client we work with deserves a custom-made plan to fit them.
We can take any situation that's thrown in front of us and look at what fears they may be trying to work through and come up with very creative solutions.
We are unique to people that are seeking to try to have the complex things more simple.
We work together as a team. As an advisor, it'll come up with tax questions. It's great to have a CPA here in the office that can answer those questions and give them accuracy.
Market Advisory Group, proud to be local.
Welcome back into Iron Retirement. I'm Matt Goolsby. You know, AI tools, they're becoming part of everyday life. And retirees are uploading sensitive financial, tax, and estate documents, often without understanding the risks. So joining us from one of our offices there in the Kansas City metro area is Jonathon McCoy. And Jonathon, thanks for jumping in here last minute. But is it safe to upload financial, estate, or tax documents into the cloud or AI?
Now, it depends on how you want to define safe, but ultimately, I think because this technology is so new to a lot of folks, they're not understanding those risks and giving your very private, secure, pertinent, and critical information of brokerage statements, estate planning documents. You talk about tax return documents and tax forms and things like that. I think the convenience that people are seeking is coming at the cost of not knowing where your information is going to wind up, not knowing what systems, tools, processes, corporations, and people and entities might get a hold of your information and potentially use it for nefarious purposes. And as we're kind of pushing into this new frontier of using AI for accessing a lot of these services, it's important to understand that your sensitive information can create and exposing your sensitive information to these AI tools can create unintended exposure that may not show up or cause you issues in terms of, whether it be a direct scam or just your information winding up in the wrong hands. You're not going to know that sometimes for quite some time later, and then it's far too late for you to unwind that.
So just because it's easy to upload into one of these tools or retirement GPP or whatever you want to do, just because it's easy to upload, it doesn't mean it's risk-free.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we have these concerns around data privacy, inside of our organization. There's a lot of privacy policies and data protection standards that we have to adhere to. Well, when it's just you and that AI search engine, or you're looking for some information or answers back, you have to understand that it might just not be your information. It could be your family members, your spouse, other people whose names or information might be included in those documents. If it's a brokerage statement, sometimes your beneficiary information might be listed there. There's all these different people that you may actually be exposing by giving this information into these tools. And, we get down the road too, and especially when we talk about, because you and I have come across several of these estate planning conversations that people sort of, in a weird way, started, I shouldn't say weird, but in a unique new way, started these estate planning conversations with AI tools, knowing that if you pass away, your spouse may not know what all of their information has been shared. Like if it's just a private moment and you're online kind of tooling around with trying to get some information or direction from these different tools, your spouse and your beneficiaries may be inheriting some of these issues that are caused by their information being shared in a way that they weren't even familiar with.
So some of the biggest concerns we've heard lately are about data privacy, of course, and possible legal exposure when using AI. I mean, obviously these can affect anyone, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're finding that there are not a lot of legal protections because these systems are so new, and you're kind of dumping your information, dumping your financials, dumping your family information into sort of this broad abyss, if you will, these large language models that are there to process this information and ultimately give you some good, convenient feedback on what questions you might be asking. But there's not a lot of limitation on how long that data is going to be stored or processed or even disseminated out from those systems that you're feeding them into. So when we think of just that term, large language models, you are teaching it using your information. I think it's just important to help educate people up front to know not necessarily exactly how these AI systems are working, but help them to know that your information really is being thrown into sort of the deep end of these AI systems, and you don't know exactly where it's going to wind up.
And to tie it all back together, just like the couple that I started off talking about at the beginning of this show, you, I think you touched on it a little bit there. These documents, whether it's statements, estate plans, tax returns, investment statements, all really probably somewhat incorporate someone else besides the person that's just uploading them or using them. And you need to understand that there's ramifications there you could probably even never imagine.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this isn't just to be, just endless fear mongering on this, but you need to educate yourself on what systems and tools that you're using. But B, especially when it's in these areas that traditionally we would consult professionals. I mean, this is the business that we're in, and we're not saying that AI can't be a helpful tool, but really our concern for, not just folks that are coming to potentially work with us, but even our existing clients. There's information about our entity on a lot of these documents that our clients have. So you have to exercise caution, and ultimately, that greatest level of trust is when you're enacting or interacting that one-on-one conversation with people, right? And we talk so much about the experience of talking with us over our conference tables and on the Teams and virtual calls and phone calls we have with people one-on-one. There are certain rules that these entities have to follow. Those rules definitely do not apply in all circumstances when you're dealing one-on-one with a lot of these AI systems.
So if you want confidence that's more that your information is protected and that your spouse could step in without confusion, start with step 1. It's a no obligation 15-minute phone conversation. You can schedule that by calling 833-44-CORE4, or you can go to retirementhelp.com. That's all the time we have today. I'm Matt Goolsby, reminding you we're here to keep an eye on retirement.